Hello everyone. In this video, we will be discussing about common human diseases caused by protozoans. I hope you know that protozoans are a group of unicellular eukaryotic organisms. So we will be discussing about two protozoan diseases. They are malaria and amoebiasis. So let us first start with malaria. So if we talk about malaria, it's a very deadly disease, right? So I have a data to support that from WHO website. It says that according to World Malaria Report, right, we have in 2018 228 million cases of malaria reported from worldwide. So out of those patients, 405,000 people died, right? And 67% of those who died were children under 5 years of age. Right. So malaria is quite a deadly disease, right? It's quite a life-threatening disease, and people who are vulnerable to malaria and those who can die because of malaria are young children, very young children below 5 years of age, and then there are pregnant women who are also quite vulnerable of dying because of malarial infection. So this deadly disease called malaria is caused by different species of Plasmodium. Right? So Plasmodium is the protozoa. So different species of Plasmodium can cause malaria. So there are three different species names given in your textbook: Plasmodium vivax, Plasmodium malaria, and Plasmodium falciparum. Right? So these three species of Plasmodium are responsible for causing malaria within human beings. Right? So out of these three, Plasmodium falciparum is said to be the deadliest. Right? If you suffer from malaria due to Plasmodium falciparum, then it is quite serious. Right? So these are the pathogens responsible for causing malaria. Now, if we talk about the mode of infection of malaria, it is a vector-borne disease. So malaria is a vector-borne disease, and the vector responsible for the spread of malaria is female Anopheles mosquito. Right? So why only female? You may ask, right? Why not male? So the males, they do not drink the blood of humans, whereas the female Anopheles mosquito, they drink the blood of human. Why do they do that? Right? Female Anopheles mosquitoes, they drink human blood only when she has to lay eggs. Right? When they have to lay eggs, they have to go and search for human blood. Not just human blood, any mammalian blood. So the blood acts as a nutritional supplement for the proper development of eggs within her body, so that she has to go and search for blood whenever she has to reproduce or whenever she has to lay eggs. All right, so that is about the female Anopheles mosquito. We will discuss about that one later on as well. Right? Now this Plasmodium, it infects our liver cells, and it also infects our red blood corpuscles. Right? And the symptoms, right, it includes recurring fever and chills, which occurs every 3 to 4 days. Chills means violent shaking of your body. Right? So there will be fever accompanied by violent shaking of your body, which occurs every 3 to 4 days, and it happens because there is release of a toxic substance called hemozoin during the rupture of RBCs. So I told you that Plasmodium, it infects our red blood cells, right? So when it grows and proliferates within the red blood cells, at a point, what happens is the RBC ruptures and releases the Plasmodium. And during that time, along with that, what happens is the Plasmodium, it releases a very toxic substance called hemozoin, and this hemozoin results in fever and chills, which occur every 3 to 4 days. So that is the symptom of malaria. There are other symptoms as well, but in your textbook it is written recurring fever and chills every 3 to 4 days. That is the symptom of malaria. And what are the control measures? So control measures, as you know that this particular pathogen is carried from human to human by female Anopheles mosquito. So we have to do vector control. We have to control the population of vector in order to control the disease spread. Okay, so vector control. Avoid getting bitten by mosquitoes. Right? So these are the two. If you suffer from malaria, doctors will prescribe drugs like chloroquine and quinine, and there are other drugs as well. Okay, so it is quite a treatable disease. You don't have to die because of malaria unless you are immunocompromised. Okay, so control measures, we will discuss more about control measures over here. How can we do vector control? If we understand the life cycle of mosquito, then we can plan our vector control, right? So mosquitoes, adult mosquito, female mosquitoes, they lay their eggs in water bodies, in stagnant water bodies. Adult mosquitoes, they lay their eggs in water bodies. The eggs they hatch produces larvae. Larvae they pupate, and from pupa the adult mosquito emerges and the life cycle continues. Now if you look at the life cycle, we can see that stagnant water plays a very significant part. By understanding that biology, we can apply that over here, right? How to control the vector population. First, we have to avoid stagnation of water near our houses, right? So vector control can be done by avoiding stagnation of water near our houses, by cleaning our coolers regularly, right? If you have a cooler installed, you should clean that cooler regularly. You have to clean that water regularly. Since mosquitoes, they can breed in any stagnant water, they can breed within coolers as well. This is a big problem in Delhi, right? Where mosquitoes, they lay their eggs inside the cooler, right? In the water inside the cooler, and they come out and bite you in the night. Okay, so clean your coolers regularly. Then you can spray insecticides in drainage and swamps. If you have drainage area and swamps nearby, you can spray insecticides. The thing about mosquito population control is that human beings, or the scientists who produced or who invented or who created DDT powder, was created specifically for killing the mosquitoes. Okay, so that is one thing. And then in order to prevent yourself from getting bitten, avoid getting bitten, you can use mosquito nets to sleep inside, and you can cover yourself properly by wearing full sleeves and pants if you go out, right? And in high risk zones, you can apply mosquito repellent creams and sprays on your exposed area, right? So these are the control measures. Okay, and one other control measure is also there, right? You can use or introduce a species of fish called gambusia fish, right? So these gambusia fish, they are small fishes which can survive in quite murky water, right? Quite dirty water where mosquitoes can thrive. And this fish is known to eat the larvae of the mosquitoes. So they can eat about 100 mosquito larvae per day, right? So if you introduce a lot of gambusia fish within the stagnant water, you can control the population of mosquito. It is quite difficult to eradicate, or you can exterminate the mosquito population, because this species is quite hardy, right? This particular organism, mosquitoes, they are quite hardy. They can breed anywhere, right? They will find a way to survive, right? Even DDT powder was unable to eradicate mosquito. They were able to control the mosquito population, but later on DDT resistant mosquito population came into existence. Right? So anyways, if you use gambusia fish, right, this is a form of biocontrol. Here you are not using any kind of chemicals over here. You are just introducing a fish in the water, and that fish will eat the mosquito larvae to control the mosquito population. So that is why it is called as biocontrol. Now let us take a look at the life cycle of Plasmodium in order to understand malaria better, right? So if you take a look at the life cycle of the Plasmodium, we can see over here that the parasite requires 2 hosts in order to complete its entire life cycle, right? So the 2 hosts are human beings and the mosquitoes, right? So human beings and mosquitoes are the 2 hosts of Plasmodium in order to complete its life cycle. Okay, so let us start from here, right? So when an infected mosquito bites a healthy human being, what happens is, along with the saliva of the mosquito, the sporozoid form of the Plasmodium enters the human bloodstream, right? So the sporozoid stage, or the sporozoid form of the Plasmodium, enters the human body along with the saliva of the infected mosquito, and the sporozoid goes and first of all infects the human liver cells. Inside the human liver cells, the sporozoid, it reproduces asexually and produces lots and lots of merozoites. Okay, so sporozoids turns into merozoites. That is through asexual reproduction. Now these merozoites, they will enter the red blood cells. Now they have come inside the blood cells, and specifically red blood cells. So the merozoites infects the red blood cells, and inside the red blood cells, these merozoites again reproduces asexually and produces more merozoites. And when the red blood cells become filled with merozoites, it bursts at a particular stage. The merozoites, the red blood cells, it bursts and releases the merozoites outside. And when the bursting of RBC happens, I told you before that fever and chill occurs, because along with the bursting of RBCs, the pathogen also releases a toxic substance called hemozoin, and that causes fever and chills every 3 to 4 days, right? So here now some of the merozoites which infects the RBC, they will turn into gametocytes. Now it's the sexual form. Up till here the pathogen was reproducing asexually. Now here some of the merozoites which infects the RBC enters the sexual stage, that is the gametocytes. So we have got male and female gametocytes within the RBC. And this RBC, which is now traveling within the human bloodstream, what happens is when an uninfected mosquito bites this particular infected human being, now what happens? It will enter this particular RBC. It will enter the intestine of the mosquito. Now the RBC which is carrying the gametocytes will enter the intestines of the mosquito along with the blood meal. What happens? Inside the intestine, these two gametocytes, the macrogametocyte and the microgametocyte, they will fertilize and form zygote. This happens within the intestines of the mosquito. Zygote will develop into a motile ookinete. The ookinete will go and infect the gut cells of the mosquito or the intestinal cells. Inside the gut of the mosquito, the ookinete will turn into oocyst. Inside the oocyst, the cell proliferates and it will turn into more sporozoites. See how the pathogen is changing its stages over here. From ookinete to oocyst, it will produce more sporozoites. Now the sporozoites will move into the salivary glands of the mosquito, and the cycle continues. The mosquito, when it bites another healthy person, the cycle continues. She will inject the sporozoites along with the saliva. Okay, so this is the life cycle of the pathogen or the plasmodium. Okay, so in your textbook this particular diagram is given. It's a beautiful diagram, so you can understand, you can just study this particular diagram and try to understand the life cycle of the plasmodium in order to understand the disease itself, the malaria. Okay, so that is about the life cycle of plasmodium. All right, our next protozoan disease that we need to discuss in detail is amoebiasis or amoebic dysentery. So the pathogen responsible for causing amoebiasis is Entamoeba histolytica. So this particular name is pretty important. One of your practical spottings include Entamoeba histolytica. So the pathogen responsible for causing amoebiasis is Entamoeba histolytica. This particular pathogen infects the large intestine, especially the colon region of human beings. Right? And the pathogen enters our body through contaminated food and water. Right? And it is also carried by houseflies. So houseflies acts as physical vector. How it happens is when the housefly goes and sits on the feces of an infected person, the feces of the infected person contains the cyst of the amoeba, the Entamoeba histolytica, and the fly will bring that cyst onto the food, and thereby along with the food, when it enters the body, it causes infection. Right? So houseflies, they are physical vectors of Entamoeba histolytica. Now the symptoms of the infection includes constipation, right, abdominal pain and cramps, and stools with excess mucus and blood clots. That is also called as bloody diarrhea. Blood clots appear when the amoebiasis, it enters into a severe stage. So when Entamoeba histolytica starts to destroy or cause the lysis of the gut cells, it will create perforations and it will cause bleeding within the large intestine, and that blood will come along with the stool. Okay, so bloody diarrhea can happen in the later stages of infection. So what are the control measures of amoebiasis? So the same thing, proper food hygiene is required. You have to eat food which is clean. Okay, you have to avoid eating raw fruits and vegetables. Right? In certain countries, human feces, untreated human feces, are used as manure on the field. So if the feces used is from an infected person, that means the cyst will be available on the fruits and vegetables which is grown on those fields. Right? So you have to take care not to consume those things, and you have to drink clean drinking water as well. So safe drinking water is also very necessary. So these are the control measures. Here we have the image of Ant-amoeba histolytica. This is the protozoan parasite which is responsible for causing amoebiasis, right? So Ant-amoeba histolytica, and if you take a look at its life cycle, right, it enters our body in the form of mature cysts. So mature cysts are present in the feces of the infected person, and the mature cyst is the one which contaminates the soil, water, and food, right? So when the mature cyst enters into the body of the human being, it undergoes excisement. Excisement means the cyst will break and it will release the cells inside, and the cells inside are now trophozoites. So the trophozoites are the infectious stage, right? So the trophozoite goes into the large intestine and it infects the cells lining the large intestine, or the colon part of the intestine, and there it proliferates and causes perforations and everything, right? Causes bloody diarrhea and everything over there, right? And this trophozoite, if it creates a perforation on the intestinal wall, it can also enter into the bloodstream and then goes to infect liver, lungs, and also brain. These are some extra information. You don't have to remember them for examination, but it is good to know, right? After entering into the gut cells, it can also enter into the bloodstream and goes on to infect liver, lungs, and brain as well. So this Ant-amoeba histolytica, it not only infects the large intestine, but also it can infect liver, lungs, and brain as well. Okay, so that is the trophozoite stage. But some of the trophozoites will undergo encisement. It will form cyst, and the cyst will be passed along with the feces or the stool of the infected person, and it goes and contaminates the soil, water, and food, and again the cycle continues. So that is about Ant-amoeba histolytica and amoebiasis. So I hope you're clear regarding those two diseases. Now we have studied malaria and amoebiasis. These are the two protozoan diseases. In our next video, we will be discussing about common human diseases caused by helminths and fungi. Okay, so the diseases include ascariasis and elephantiasis caused by helminths, and ringworm caused by fungi. Okay, so please read about these three diseases and you can watch the next video. Thank you.